Joining us now for his insights on how the Iran war could impact global energy production is Daniel Turner, founder and executive director of Power of the Future. So Daniel, thank you for joining us today. And I want to start off with talking about the Strait of Hormuz. You know, about 20% of world oil and LNG goes through the strait. What has been the impact here of this operation in Iran? Because there has been a certain level of turbulence in the strait.
There has, and the Straits of Hormuz has been a turbulent area for decades. When you look at the map of that region, all Kuwaiti, a lot of Saudi oil, all Iraq, much of Iran's oil, not to mention United Arab Emirates, etc. These nations all depend upon those waterways to ship their fossil fuels to world markets. And so volatility there definitely causes a spike increase. And we've seen that. But we need a healthy perspective. When the Russia invasion of Ukraine happened a couple of years ago, oil prices spiked 35 to 40%. We've seen an 8% spike, which is still bad. Don't get me wrong. I don't want consumers to pay more for oil, but it's a measured response. And the reason why is because we have a different set of priorities in this Oval Office and a priority of producing oil domestically and not worrying about international markets so much. So yes, oil prices are up, but they're not remotely compared to where they have been when such situations like this has happened before.
Okay, so Daniel, I'm not saying this would happen, but what would be the impact if Iran decided to halt the transit of oil through the Strait of Hormuz?
Oh, it would be bad for world markets without a doubt. Go back to other major areas, conflicts in this area in years past. We saw oil hit $145 a barrel during the Gulf War. We've seen oil hit $125 a barrel, et cetera. So if it were truly shut down for a prolonged period of times, yes, the impact on the economy, on the world's economy, would be bad. Now, it wouldn't impact American supply, and that's a big difference. We get a lot of oil from this region because we refine it. We're the world's leading oil refiners. So the oil and gas that comes from this area isn't necessary for American consumption. It's because it's a service, as the analogy goes, they produce oranges and we make orange juice out of it, and then we sell it back to them. So it wouldn't have a supply impact on America, but it would have a price impact.
Okay, what is that price impact domestically at the pump? Because President Trump said this could last 4 to 5 weeks, and if needed, even longer. So what would Americans should expect prices to look like there?
Well, gas prices are up around 15 to 20 cents a gallon overnight. And that sounds like a lot, but we have to remember that we were paying $4.50 a gallon on average for the last couple of years of the Biden administration. So to go from $2.20 to $2.40 or $2.60, it is a price increase, but it is a measured price increase. I can't give a total number because I don't know how long these operations are going to last. Right now, there's a little bit of a shutdown. Who knows what America's Navy is going to do tonight and open up those shipping lanes. I know President Trump said that they have sunk several Iranian Navy vessels, and there have been a lot of operations on Iranian ports. So, for all we know, the shipping lanes could open up tomorrow. I'm sure the administration is well aware of the impact on world economies. But when you are trying to establish freedom for an area of the world that has rained terror on millions of people, there are going to be some implications, and this is one of them.
So Daniel, can I ask you about China? Because as you know, China buys 80 to 90% of Iran's seaborne oil. So, I mean, half of China's oil imports also flow through the Strait of Hormuz. So just talk to us about the dynamics here.
And when you add on top of that Venezuela operations, now I believe the president announced that they were starting to sell Venezuelan crude, and China was one of the customers they were selling it to. But look at the dynamic. It is America allowing China to buy oil from Venezuela, not Venezuelans acting independently. If you're Premier Xi and the CCP, you have to be deeply concerned. Their greatest energy vulnerability is their lack of a domestic oil supply, and they are very, very much aware of that vulnerability. When Venezuela is off the table, and now Iran looks to be off the table, you are squeezing the Chinese economy. And your audience knows, and you know, China is not the peaceful, happy, thriving economy that it projects. A little bit of market turbulence in China could be cataclysmic. So, without having to actually say the word China or even talk about Premier Xi, China is really feeling the impact of this Trump foreign policy, and a weakened China is good for world peace.
Okay, Daniel, maybe you can just give us one real world example inside China where this oil or lack thereof might impact its people there.
Well, China has a huge reliance on electric vehicles, no doubt, but they do have combustion engine cars. And combustion engine cars need imported crude in order to function, right? Heavy machinery. China has a huge mining operation. All of that machinery requires crude oil as well, refined oil products. So many of the materials that we buy from China, whether it's plastics or rubber or steel, all of that requires oil inputs. And so it's not just, the car. Sometimes I think we forget that crude oil does a lot more than just produce gasoline for cars. Look at jet fuel, right? Look at a lot of the Navy operations that China has. Look at a lot of its military operations. All of that requires crude oil. And so if that crude oil supply begins to dwindle, prices will begin to skyrocket, and China's economy cannot absorb volatile oil prices the way America's economy can.
So, Daniel, just one final question here. Amid what's happening, everything that's happening around us, just talk to us about how important American energy production and dominance is at this point, not just for the US, but maybe even for the world.
It really is. And I appreciate you ending with this because it's important to remember. And I began by saying, when you look at the Russian invasion of Ukraine, how oil prices spiked 35–40%. We're producing almost 3 million barrels a day more than we did when Russia invaded Ukraine. And those 3 million barrels demonstrate the lack of volatility in oil markets. Yes, they are up 6%, 7%, but that's nothing compared to 35–40%. And that was not very many years ago. And the delta here is American energy dominance. It is America producing enough oil, but it is also the market signal that this administration has sent by saying, oil is available, land leases are available, Alaska, the outer continental shelf, the Gulf of America, all of these places are open for oil and gas exploration. And there's a calmness in oil markets right now. And America is really setting the tone for the world's oil industry. And that is a tone of calm and resiliency.
Well, all right, Daniel, you always have great insight. Thank you for speaking with us today.
My pleasure. Always great to be with you.